Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session. Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn." In our session today, I'd like us to explore why fostering independence in students is essential and how we as teachers can effectively guide them towards this goal. I'm glad to have with me on stage my esteemed colleagues, David Grimal, Kjøll, Kristine Balanas, and Tobias Ringborg. And after my short presentation, we'll discuss practical strategies and the benefits of independent learning alongside the long-term impact it can have on students' lives. For me, the topic of fostering independent learning lies at the very heart of the best kind of rounded musical education. My observations are based on a mixture of strategies I accumulated in my own years of study and the perspective I've gained during 33 years within the profession as a performer and a teacher. As educators, we often focus on imparting knowledge. However, the greatest mentors and tutors know how to teach the most valuable lesson of all, how to make themselves entirely redundant. The significance of independent learning for a classical musician facing a career in today's fast-paced music profession cannot be overstated. Throughout my 3-decade performing career, I continued to develop my musicianship and technique to the maximum possible. The skills I gained early in my studies through learning from different teachers and professors helped me to acquire a range of tools which enabled me to continually expand my repertoire throughout my performing life to some 60 violin concertos and 250 works in total. Classical music is a discipline that demands not only exceptional technical proficiency, but also deep intellectual and emotional engagement. The very essence of classical music requires a musician to understand and interpret complex works that span centuries. Early in a student's development, especially in a traditional learning environment, a pupil might rely heavily on their teacher to tell them how to interpret the music. It's probable that this method of prescriptive teaching will predominate during the initial few years of study in order to guide a young mind as to how to structure a phrase and communicate the music. However, as a student matures, and certainly by the time they're in their teenage years, I believe that it is essential that they begin to explore their own thoughts and feelings, thereby engaging more deeply with the material. For instance, a student might analyze the structure of a piece, explore the historical context within which the work was written, and they may listen to and compare many different interpretations of a work. All of this can lead to the exciting stage of experimenting with different interpretative approaches, as well as fingerings and bowings, and the exploration of their instrument in ways which will enhance and bring out the nuances, climaxes, and colors within a phrase. This level of responsibility is not only essential for their growth as musicians, but also prepares them for the realities of a professional career. In the world of classical music, self-discipline is a non-negotiable trait. Whether it's preparing for an audition, maintaining a rigorous performance schedule, balancing teaching with performing, or even eventually, potentially, balancing performing with a family life. Musicians must be able to manage their time, talent, and energy effectively. As students learn to tackle musical and technical challenges on their own, they develop a sense of self-sufficiency and the realization that they can overcome all obstacles through their own efforts and resourcefulness. That is profoundly empowering. A student who is adept at thinking for themselves will soon turn learning a challenging passage with numerous problems into a set of various potential solutions. Going through these methodically, understanding which solution works and discarding those which don't, not only helps them to master the current difficulties, but also provides a useful roadmap for future challenges. It teaches the player to remain creative in problem solving, understanding that mistakes are also opportunities to become ever more creative in reviewing techniques that may not work in certain situations. Better still, the continued use of this creative problem-solving muscle allows for the confidence to be spontaneous in performance. For me, this is the biggest win of all, not only for the performer and their musical colleagues, but for the audience. This confident mindset is crucial in a profession where perfection is often the goal. But minor or even occasionally major mistakes during performance circumstances are almost inevitable. I have witnessed many technically flawless performances where sadly very little of the music has been communicated. I've also heard plenty of others which were less technically perfect, but have been completely fulfilling and memorable as unique moments of spontaneous creation in action. For me, the overall experience of a performer must be as much about the communication of the music as about a solid technical rendition. Nowadays, musicians must be many things. Performers need to have a wide repertoire, be adaptable when collaborating with different colleagues, willing to explore new genres, be creative with their social media, and have the courage to allow an audience to witness who they are as an interpreter. As educators and mentors, it's our responsibility to provide students with the tools and guidance they need to embark on this journey of self-discovery and self-directed learning. When we do this effectively and appropriately, we help students not only to master their craft, but also to foster the kind of inquiring mind which will lead to the best and most rewarding level of creative and deep musicianship. I'm going to come over here and now involve the panel in our discussion, and I think we might need some microphones. Fantastic. So I'm going to throw open the floor to anybody that wants to begin with this burning question: how do we foster curiosity and the desire in a student to actually begin to teach themselves rather than rely on being spoon-fed and answers being helpfully or not provided? Who would like to kick off? Cam.
Is it on? Or hello? Yes? Okay. Hi. Thank you, Tasmin, for your wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
And yes, I'm actually now looking into this audience and seeing two of my teachers. So it's a little bit intimidating to give a speech about. But yeah, I don't want to steal time, but just 5 seconds. Thank you both for everything. I think about you daily when I play, both of you, and everything you have said. Just as a, it means so much to us, these lessons, that when we grow up and we live with them for the rest of our lives, little quotes or little things that you have said or done, or, yes, very important. To your question, how to spark curiosity in a young performer or musician. I find it a little bit of a challenge now. I'm 40 now, and I'm teaching students that are around beginning of in their 20s, and they are from quite a different generation already, I feel, than me in terms of what they grew up with. with their future plans. Because as I grew up in the 90s or early 2000s, it was quite free and still quite free. And we didn't even think much about, at least not in Norway, we didn't think much about the fear of what will come and will I have a job. Job was actually not the goal at all, which made us very free and sort of in this beautiful bubble of just, you know, looking over and over at Oistrakh and Milstein and Grimal and all this wonderful violinists, and we would just nerd out and live in this bubble thinking, who do I want to be, you know, and not thinking, how do I want to play Don Juan and these things that are now on my students' mind, I feel very much. So I'm actually thinking very much about this question myself these days, how to spark curiosity and get them curious about being their own violinist without this box that I feel a little bit that they are in. And I would love to talk to my ex-teachers also if they felt the same way, maybe with me, you know, what do I know? But well, maybe they have some tips for me, I'm sure. But yes, I try really to expose them to as much as possible of what is now the old school, because for me this is just, it's hard for me to grasp if you don't appreciate this style of playing that we all sort of grew out of, how to create something of your own without this knowledge. So I try to sort of make them, I guess, listen to it. And yeah, that's my first thought.
Thank you. David, we've had conversations about, you know, what has...
Secret
conversations. But without revealing too much of the secret stuff, we've spoken about the way that the profession has changed. What do you feel might have changed with regard to the teaching that is available nowadays? So Cam was talking about the way things were and what has changed and maybe why.
Well, first of all, I have to thank you, Cam, for saying this, because it felt like my body was relaxing when you were talking about the gold period of violinists, because I am also trying to put this on the table, the black and white videos on YouTube, which are my favorite ones. And actually, I'm also teaching to play without the shoulder rest, like in the old time and so on. So it's really, for me, it has a very strong meaning, what you said, and suddenly I starting to breathe differently. So thank you for that. And well, to answer your question, we are in a very pragmatic world, and there are millions of violinists coming from all over the places, which is wonderful because it shows that even if in our countries sometimes we don't believe in classical music, there are many countries who are really in love and fascinated by classical music. So it gives hope on one hand. On the other hand, it's a big problem, it's a big challenge, because we have the impression that we are part of a huge Xerox machine. And that we see really thousands of young violinists who can play quite well. I mean, quite well is as expected. So it's like if the teaching in the last maybe 20 or 30 years has been very pragmatic and you know, I remember a Russian composer who told me, like in the old time on the Soviet Union, that there was a piano teacher who said, "Bring me a rabbit and I will make him win Tchaikovsky competition." So we have this kind of technique of teaching, which is very, very strong, and there are many soldiers who can train many soldiers. So we have armies of musicians, and it's a little scary. And I think we are all a little scared. I mean, I am scared, and I know that my students are scared too, because they don't know if they want to be part of this, and if they can be part of this. So this competition system is maybe not so creative, as we have to reach a certain standard, and the only way to be known now is through social medias, to be eccentric, to be creative in a way which doesn't belong sometimes to music. So we are at a crossing point, but I think also our societies are there, and we have to question what kind of human beings we need, and what does it mean to be a human. What is it to be a musician? What is it to be an artist? And then what human qualities you should develop. What I am trying to do with my students, and I am not saying that it's a good thing. I don't think they are lucky with me. I'm trying to teach them to be free, which is sometimes very hard for them, because I don't take for granted when they come and play something that I have heard already 1,000 times, because I can't stand it, so I'm falling asleep. So I need them to be themselves. So I'm asking them to be themselves, and they have a hard time actually being, like Yehudi said, just to be. So to be or not to be.
Thank you. So I don't know how much teaching you do, but I was wondering how you keep yourself feeling creative about pieces that perhaps by now you may have played many, many times, and were you encouraged in your student years to remain very fresh, or was it quite rigid in the way that you were taught?
I was taught very strictly, I think, from very, very young age. And I had, I think, Soviet-trained teachers. And then for 10 years, I was studying in Latvia, I think. And then I moved to Germany, and I had very strict teachers there. And then I went to London, and I was with Georgie Pauk, who was also very strict. And then I had another very strict teacher, Kolja Blacher, who's fantastic. I mean, all my teachers I've been very blessed with very, very strong kind of training.
Can I just pause you there? I want you to answer the question, but this brings such an interesting question to my mind, which is, you said they were really good teachers. Why did you feel that being strict was a good thing?
I think maybe I'm made differently, I don't know. But I like to have a lot of challenges in my life. I mean, I'm very easily bored, so I always need a new challenge. And I can't, I'm a perfectionist as well, and I do like to get into details like crazy and, get obsessed with one bar or other things. And these kind of teaching worked with me. I mean, it doesn't work with everybody. But what helped me is, after studying all these years, I mean, this is a few years ago already, I decided, okay, that's enough. I need to just find myself. And I found the most fun because I had this basis of really rigid, strict training that I could do whatever I want musically. And that was the biggest freedom feel. I was so happy. I would spend hours finally I can play as I want. And actually my career slowly developed. It wasn't I wasn't a prodigy. I wasn't, anything special in that sense of young musicians nowadays. But I had the time to really realize that I really want to do this. I really want to perform, I want to be on stage, and I find figure my own way of playing. But I would say it's not a method that works with everybody. There's something that worked with me, and I always had the drive because from a very young age I really wanted to be on stage. But that helped me to have the tools to express, to really develop my own playing. And I think also with age I felt like I have something to say in music, because I mean we all play Brahms, Tchaikovsky and Mendelssohn when we're very young, and then you kind of get stuck into those interpretations and how you've been taught by the certain teacher. And in a way it's great to take all the good things from teachers and just cut it off and then build it from beginning again. You bring a new score, you buy new music, new edition, and then you start really trying to voice it through yourself. How you would sing it, how you would phrase it, how you start again from zero, but with the tools you already have. Yeah.
So just, this is slightly skiing off-piste,
sorry.
but no, it's me that's skiing off-piste, not you. I want to know then, with this basis of a very strict style of teaching that you have and now this freedom that you have, how do you respond if you're working with a conductor who is very rigid about the way that he believes your Brahms or Beethoven or Tchaikovsky concerto should go? How do you go back into I'm a good student mode, or do you rail against it and lots of arguments ensue?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've actually been blessed with great conductors who are always accommodating, but there have been occasions, but usually what I do is quite sneaky. I play as they lead in the rehearsals, and then in the concert the musicians usually follow the soloist, so I always trust the musicians.
I'm sure you're really popular.
No, but it's only one occasion, 2 occasions. I mean, usually I think conductors are also human beings, you know, they
Okay, that's a whole other subject. Tobias, I'd like to bring you in now. Would you like to comment on anything so far that's been expressed?
Sure. I work mostly as a conductor nowadays, so thank you so much. But no. I hope I am a human being, and of course, you know that for me it's absolutely crucial when I work with a singers. A little bit different story, but it's a very different story. But instrumental soloists, it's 100% their interpretation that is, you know, going to happen. I mean, there's no question.
Even if you really disagree with it.
Completely. Of course, there's this famous thing with Glenn Gould and Leonard Bernstein when they didn't agree. Anyway, but what I would like to say.
You can't stop there. I think we all want to
No,
know.
there's a famous story when they absolutely did not agree about the interpretation of Brahms' first piano concerto, and Leonard Bernstein gave a speech before and said, "We will go with Mr. Gould's interpretation, but I don't agree with it." And can you imagine? You know, that's a famous incident. Anyway, to go back to what all of you have talked about, especially Cam and David. Why don't we have the great personalities anymore that we used to have? You mentioned the black and white videos, and of course we have some, but not in the same way as we used to. And I've thought so much about this issue, is that for me it's the thing to blame, that we have to blame for this, is recordings, you know, because of course we can use the black and white videos as, I mean, we have been given recordings from the greatest artists for 100 years or more, 120 years. We can hear Caruso sing, we can hear Maria Callas, we can hear Horowitz, we can hear whatever, Fritz Kreisler, Jascha Heifetz. We can hear, that's a gift that has been given to us, a gift to humanity, that we have these recordings. But young people today, I feel, use recordings in a completely wrong way. They use recordings to learn the pieces and not for inspiration, you know. And in my day, you know, even in the 80s, when I started buying records, it was LP. And it was a big thing, you know. You saved money for a month, and you I want that record, and you went to buy it, and it was Jascha Heifetz playing the Brahms concerto, whatever. It was a big thing, you know. It was a big thing, and you took off the plastic, and you put it on, and now they do this, and they have the recording on their iPad, and that's a problem. It's too easy. It's too easy to listen to recordings. They listen, especially, of course, I work, what I mainly do today is conduct opera. And of course, I hear from young singers all the time. They listen to recordings over and over and over, but in the wrong way. Not for inspiration.
Right, as a means to try and copy something
that's
already there, a template.
To learn the music instead of looking at the score.
Yes. So is it information overload then, that there's
yes,
too much?
Too much.
Yes.
They can listen to an aria 30 different interpretations, or we can hear the Mendelssohn concerto in 60 recordings on Spotify. That's terrible, I think. You know. But we can use those the fantastic recordings from your, like the artist I mentioned. We can use that as an incredible tool for inspiration.
So I want to bring up the somewhat emotional subject of artificial intelligence. I know we've only got 10 minutes left, and in the moment, this is your notice, everybody, if you have burning questions to ask. In a moment, we'll be, or when we're all fighting over artificial intelligence and what we think about it all, you can break up the fight by asking a question. But do you feel we're ever going to get to the stage where a virtual AI teacher could potentially, I mean, obviously we're talking maybe 50 years hence, when it's a lot more sophisticated and there's cameras that are watching the angle of your elbow as you miss that shift again or whatever. Do you think we'll ever get to the stage where there will be artificial intelligence teachers? What would be, and I'm going to make it difficult for all of you, what would be the advantages and the disadvantages? And I need to probably keep this fairly short, but anybody?
I want to be the first.
Of course.
I'm not going to answer your question, but I'm going to tell you a story. I was playing. Working with an orchestra of scientists, great scientists, Nobel Prizes, great scientists at the Weizmann Institute in the state of Israel. And they were really playing very stupidly, and I had to get the conductor out. I'm sorry, she was a wonderful human being, by the way, and just tell them, breathe and listen. And then it started to sound, and there was a young boy with the hair like this, and he was playing like kind of tambour. It was not timbal, timpani, they didn't have timpani. So it was boom, and boom. So I looked at him and I said, I'm sure you're clever enough to count up to 4. So stop counting and just breathe. And then it was perfect. Anyway, at the break, I went to see the young boy. He was maybe 18 or 20, I don't know. And I said, so what are you doing in life? I'm working on artificial intelligence. So I had a question for him. Do you think it's going to kill us, and when? Artificial intelligence. And he told me, artificial intelligence is totally stupid, immensely stupid. And if it kills us, it will be for a very stupid reason. That's my answer.
Cam, can I ask you what you think?
Yes. Oh boy. Actually, never thought about that. I think artificial intelligence for me is something someone else is doing. It's not. Of course, it affects me, but I'm in a naive stage in my life where I have much more important things to worry about. It sounds horrible, doesn't it? I would never want that. I think I hate my phone. It gives me pleasure to stay in touch with my family and friends, but I can't imagine using it for teaching music. I mean, that's ludicrous, I would just say spontaneously, but I hope we're not going that direction. I actually feel that the generation behind me and the one behind that again are much wiser with their phones and internet and exposure to themselves of it. And since they grow up with it, they have a much higher awareness of how much they use it. And from my age and up, it's just all the time. So
not that I'm disagreeing with you, but I'm still curious why you think it would be so. I'm just playing devil's advocate here because it's fun. But why do you think it would be so scary? And I'm not talking about artificial intelligence as it is right now. I'm projecting us 50 years into the future when it is a great deal more sophisticated, presumably, and has a great deal more more versatility. Could there ever be any benefit in that kind of teaching that might be amassed from all the great teachers that have ever lived?
I think there, sorry, but I think there already is like orchestra accompaniment, you know, you can practice your scores, and I think things like metronome or, I mean, all these kind of things like tuners, I mean, there's a lot of help, I think.
Of course,
I
yes.
don't see it as an evil.
No, not at all. I'm
necessarily.
addicted to my iPad for my music. I love my tuners and metronomes and all these wonderful apps. And they make life so much easier, especially when we travel so much as we do. But for me, music is about connection. And if I'm not connecting with the internet, I mean, I'm using it, and it's probably using me without me knowing. And yeah, this is not for me music. And you can, of course, learn from it, but there's no connection, right?
So just to clarify for you, music is about connection, people to people, not people elsewhere.
Correct.
Because you didn't quite clarify that.
Yes.
So it's an entirely human transaction, if you like.
For me, that is exactly what it was always about. How it feels to play with someone else, how it feels to play with an audience, and the energy that they bring. And of course, that's why it was so hard for everyone during the pandemic.
Indeed.
And why we felt starved of that. And
yes, and the audience felt starved of real
Exactly.
people on stage. Yes, yes. Have you got anything more that you wanted to add?
Yeah, maybe. I was thinking, I don't see it as evil. Like, I think it's a help, for example, if someone is like really far away, or, you know, you can, I mean, I'm not even saying about Zoom or whatever, if you have like all the information together, you know, you can learn, even if you can't afford it, you know, if you can't travel to master classes, if you can't afford, you know, expense, I don't know, like scores or things, you know, there are ways to learn. I mean, I can compare it, for example, I mean, this is like not really artificial intelligence, but in the early 30s, 40s, my violin teacher, he started very late. He was 16 or 17. He has a fantastic story. But he learned violin just from books, just by reading book, just by looking at photos, and he didn't have the means. He walked from city to city to look for a violin teacher. And I think if he lived in like, I don't know, 22nd century or something, and there is like a robot or I don't know, you know, and it's just information. Of course, I understand music making. I wouldn't want to make with like cyborgs and AIs and everything like an orchestra, but I think there are good ways, and it's always it's a thing that helps you learn. You know, it's a tool. You don't see it as a person. It's just another way of, you know, helping learning. Like, why would you write all the systems, you know, making schedules? Like, why would you do it as a person if you can just put it in a, you know, algorithm and it just does it for you and you save time, you know? And I mean, these kind of things, I think there are two sides to it, of course. And I wouldn't want to make music with a robot conductor.
Tobias, what do you think? And then I'm going to just, we're slightly short on time, but if anybody's got anything they want to ask after Tobias.
It's interesting to hear both of you. I have to say I agree a little bit more with I'm more on Cam's line, but also I'm you mentioned iPads, and I'm 10 years older than you, and I mean for me that's already impossible. I mean my scores have to be paper. It's just the way it is. But no, for me it's just about connection, and I cannot imagine anything artificial. I mean, sorry. That's just my...
There's no need to apologise. Okay. All right, thank you. So do we have any questions from the floor? Anybody that... yes.
Could you say something about diversity? Is it more diverse now that more people can upload their YouTubes? Is it easier to find a role model for all of us? And also that classical music is played all over the world. Is it because it's so available everywhere?
Who would like to talk about that?
Yes, I don't know about your last question. Don't have any immediate clever answer. But for diversity, at least I think that's fantastic with internet. It's how I found many of in my community, and yes, it is truly at least been life-saving for me. So I think also for musicians, and to find other like minds, or I mean, this is the thing, growing up without internet was quite limiting in the terms of you are who you are with the friends you are around, and it could be very, very small, this world. So yes, for me, diversity is definitely growing in this way.
And the second part of the question was whether, you know, it was to do with the fact that music is now so available all over the world. And I mean, you know, for myself, I love being able to have access to a huge library, and depending on how you want to use it, I think it's fantastically interesting to compare lots of different performances. And obviously we've got performances that it's so amazing that we can go back and, you know, hear how Caruso and Callas and other people used to sound. Even Sarasate, he was quite scrappy, actually, quite unusually scrappy. Anyway, but I mean, it's amazing to have that. It's like history coming to life. So personally, I love the vast library that is now available and the ease with which you can access that. But perhaps I had the best of both worlds because I did not have that growing up. And now I see the advantage of having it, but I am not dependent on it.
May I just add a small story? Because I
Yes.
see Alf Rikard is sitting here, who was my teacher as a teenager. And about access to things, I was just thinking of my students, you know, or my students or whatever, this generation, what they do a lot, I don't know, there's a few here maybe, is they look on YouTube. They don't even go to Spotify, which is for me, I don't understand it, but okay. And they go and they look the first video that comes. If let's say Ravel Sonata, okay, Ravel Sonata, they can be a student playing it, which is very nice. They give them views, etc. But it's, to me, very strange. But anyway, with getting hold of information, you know, if I came to my lesson with Alf Rikard and there was a word in the score, usually Italian, that I hadn't looked up, right? It happens. Or it happened once at least. He just sent me home. I don't think you remember, but you just said, oh, that's, you need to learn, you need to know the words, you come to play my lesson. And find your, you know, to find the word on the phone takes now less than 30 seconds with Google Translate. You point the camera and there you have it. I had to go to the library, right? I went to the library, Store Deichman in Oslo. I rented the dictionary. I sat there. I remember sitting there looking up all the words with my score, and you write it and then you remember it forever.
Exactly.
So
Involve me and I learn, going
Yes.
back to Benjamin Franklin. That is exactly what he said. So well done you. We practically got to have to wrap up now. Was there anything quick that anybody wanted to just comment on, or if not, anybody here has some last thoughts on anything? No? Well, thank you very much to all my colleagues. I think it's been really interesting. I've enjoyed listening to everybody's perspective. I hope it's been interesting and illuminating for you, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Tasmin.